In today's episode of the Beyond Psychology podcast, we're going to talk about finding meaning in suffering and how our search for purpose might be the most fundamental human drive of all. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about human motivation is incomplete? That beyond our drive for pleasure and power lies something more fundamental, a search for meaning that defines our very humanity. In 1942, a Jewish psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl was arrested and transported to Auschwitz. In an instant, everything was stripped away. His identity, his manuscript containing his life's work, and later his wife, mother, father, and brother. Yet in this place where human dignity seemed impossible, Frankl made a discovery that would revolutionize psychology. Meaning is what keeps us alive. Those who survived the unimaginable horror weren't necessarily the physically strongest or the most clever. They were those who maintained an inner purpose, who had something to live for. As Frankl would later write, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." This insight became the foundation of logotherapy, Frankl's revolutionary approach to psychology. While Freud centered on our will to pleasure and Adler on our will to power, Frankl recognized our primary drive as a will to meaning. Today, we'll explore how this insight can transform our relationship with suffering, purpose, and what it means to live a fulfilling life, regardless of our circumstances. Frankl's insights weren't born in the comfort of academic study, but forged in the crucible of suffering. As prisoner number 119,104 in Auschwitz and other concentration camps, he witnessed and experienced unimaginable horror. Imagine this. You arrive after days in a cramped cattle car. The selection process begins immediately. A finger pointing left means immediate death in the gas chambers. Right means forced labor. Your manuscript, your life's work, is confiscated. Your head is shaved. Your clothes are replaced with rags. Your name becomes a number. We had nothing now, Frankl writes, except our bare bodies, even minus hair. All we possessed literally was our naked existence. In this dehumanizing environment, Frankl observed three distinct psychological phases that prisoners experienced. First came shock, the initial trauma and disbelief. Many responded with gallows humor or strange detached curiosity. Frankl recalls how they made jokes while standing naked in the disinfection room, despite the horror of their situation. Only in this way could we afford a few seconds of humor, he explains. The second phase was apathy, an emotional numbing that served as a psychological shield. Starvation, disease, and constant fear caused a deadening of normal emotions. Frankl describes watching a fellow prisoner die. I continued sipping my soup. If my lack of emotion had not surprised me from the standpoint of professional interest, I would not remember this incident because there was so little feeling involved in it. But within this seemingly hopeless environment, Frankl made his most profound discovery: inner freedom. Even in the camps, prisoners had choices, small but significant choices in their attitudes and actions. As he writes in what may be his most powerful insight, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. After liberation and returning to Vienna, Frankl discovered that the psychological crisis he witnessed in the camps had a parallel in everyday society. He called this modern condition the existential vacuum, a widespread feeling of emptiness and meaninglessness. Have you ever achieved something you worked toward for years, only to think, is this all there is? Or perhaps you've experienced that peculiar boredom that comes even when all your needs are met? These are manifestations of what Frankl identified as the existential vacuum. This void isn't just philosophical abstraction. Frankl saw it manifest clinically as depression, addiction, and aggression. People frantically try to fill this vacuum through pleasure-seeking, what Frankl calls the will to pleasure, accumulating power or wealth, the will to power, or blindly conforming to society's expectations. But these efforts ultimately fail to provide lasting fulfillment. Sunday neurosis, Frankl observed, afflicts many people. That depression that occurs when the busy work week ends and the emptiness within becomes apparent. As he explains, no instinct tells man what he has to do, and no tradition tells him what he ought to do. Soon, he will not know what he wants to do. This explains why many people paradoxically feel most alive when facing challenges rather than during periods of comfort. As Frankl notes, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. Frankl's therapeutic approach directly addresses this vacuum. In one striking case, an elderly doctor came to him inconsolable after his wife's death. Rather than offering platitudes, Frankl asked, "What would have happened if you had died first and your wife had to survive you?" For her, this would have been terrible. How she would have suffered, the doctor replied. "You see," Frankl responded, "such suffering has been spared her, and it was you who spared her this suffering, but now you have to pay for it by surviving and mourning her." In that moment, the doctor's perception shifted. His grief acquired meaning. It became a sacrifice made out of love. And when suffering has meaning, it becomes bearable. So how do we discover meaning in our lives? Through his experiences and clinical work, Frankl identified 3 distinct pathways to meaning that are available to everyone. First, through creative work or deed, by creating something or accomplishing a task that contributes to the world. This could be your profession, a creative pursuit, or even small daily acts that make a difference to others. What matters is that it represents your unique contribution. Second, through experiences and encounters, by experiencing beauty, truth, goodness, nature, culture, or most profoundly, by experiencing someone through loving them. Frankl describes this second pathway beautifully. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. By his love, the loving person enables the beloved person to actualize these potentialities. When we truly see another person through love, we perceive what they can become, helping that potential come to fruition. Third, and perhaps most profoundly, by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. When we face a fate that cannot be changed, a terminal illness, an irreversible loss, an incurable condition, we still retain the freedom to choose our attitude toward it. Frankl himself experienced this third pathway during a pre-dawn march to a work site. Stumbling in darkness, starved and exhausted, his thoughts turned to his wife. He writes, "A thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life I saw the truth, that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire." In that moment of transcendence, Frankl realized, the salvation of man is through love and in love. Even without knowing if his wife was alive, the inner experience of loving her gave his suffering meaning. This insight forms the foundation of Logotherapy's approach to unavoidable suffering. When we cannot change our fate, we are challenged to change ourselves. As Frankl notes, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. How do we apply Frankl's insights in our daily lives? His therapeutic approach, Logotherapy, offers practical tools for overcoming obstacles and living with greater purpose. First, recognize that meaning cannot be prescribed. It must be discovered. You cannot simply be told what should make your life meaningful. As Frankl explains, everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Your meaning is as unique as your fingerprint. Second, take responsibility for finding meaning by inverting the question many of us ask. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life, Frankl writes, and instead think of ourselves as those who are being questioned by life, daily and hourly. Life interrogates us through our circumstances, and our answer comes through our actions and attitudes. Third, embrace the concept of tragic optimism, maintaining hope and finding meaning even in the face of pain, guilt, and death. This isn't naive positivity, but a clear-eyed recognition that life has purpose under all circumstances. Fourth, practice self-transcendence, reaching beyond yourself towards something or someone else. Paradoxically, the more directly we pursue happiness, the more it eludes us. As Frankl notes, happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue, as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. One of Frankl's most innovative therapeutic techniques is paradoxical intention, which helps overcome anxiety by intentionally doing what we fear. Consider the case of a man with severe sweating anxiety. The more he feared sweating in public, the more he would sweat. Frankl advised him, "Next time, deliberately show people how much you can sweat." By trying to exaggerate his symptom, the man found himself unable to sweat excessively. Within a week, his phobia disappeared. This counterintuitive approach works because fear brings to pass what one is afraid of. Whether it's insomnia, try to stay awake as long as possible, or public speaking anxiety, try to be as nervous as you can. Paradoxical intention breaks the cycle of anticipatory anxiety. To begin applying meaning-centered living today, ask yourself, what is being asked of me in this situation? What unique contribution can I make? How can my unavoidable suffering become meaningful? Who needs me right now? Through these questions, we shift from being victims of circumstance to active participants in creating a meaningful life. Frankl's philosophy has profound implications for how we face life's inevitable challenges. In particular, he addresses three universal human concerns: aging, suffering, and death. With aging, Frankl offers a radical reframing. While our culture often views aging as merely a loss of possibilities, Frankl sees it as an accumulation of actualities, a storehouse of lived experiences, accomplishments, and loves that can never be taken away. He offers this powerful metaphor. The pessimist resembles a man who observes with fear as his wall calendar grows thinner with each passing day. The optimist removes each leaf and files it away with gratitude after writing on the back all he has accomplished and experienced. The optimist can reflect with pride and joy on all the richness set down in these notes, on all the life he has already lived to the fullest. With suffering, Frankl distinguishes between avoidable and unavoidable pain. When suffering cannot be avoided, a terminal illness, a permanent loss, it becomes a task, a challenge to transform personal tragedy into triumph. He observed this in the camps where some prisoners, despite unimaginable conditions, walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. Frankl recalls meeting a young woman in the concentration camp who, despite knowing she would die soon, pointed to a chestnut tree visible through the window of the hut, saying, "This tree is the only friend I have in my loneliness." When Frankl asked if the tree replied, she said, "It said to me, I am here, I am here, I am life, eternal life." Even facing death, she found meaning through her appreciation of beauty. With death, Frankl suggests that life's finitude is what gives our choices significance. If we were immortal, we could indefinitely postpone every action. It's precisely because our time is limited that our decisions matter. What we actualize in the world, our deeds, loves, and attitudes, is preserved forever in the past. As Frankl writes, in the past nothing is irretrievably lost, but rather, on the contrary, everything is irrevocably stored and treasured. Having been is also a kind of being, and perhaps the surest kind. This perspective transforms how we view time and accomplishment, making even a short life potentially more meaningful than a long one spent without purpose. Viktor Frankl's journey, from concentration camp prisoner to world-renowned psychiatrist, embodies the very principles he discovered. He transformed unimaginable suffering into a gift for humanity, creating a therapeutic approach that has helped millions find meaning in their struggles. What makes Frankl's work so enduring is that it speaks to our deepest human need, not merely to exist, but to exist meaningfully. The existential vacuum he identified in the 1940s has only grown more prevalent in our age of distraction and material abundance. His insights offer a counterbalance to our culture's fixation on happiness, success, and comfort. Frankl reminds us that meaning isn't just a luxury for good times. It's the essential foundation for human resilience. It's what enables us to withstand suffering, to grow through challenges, and to contribute something valuable to the world. The most remarkable aspect of Frankl's message is that it places the power to find meaning squarely in our hands. No matter your circumstances, whether facing a terminal illness, a personal loss, or simply the everyday challenges of living, you retain the freedom to choose your attitude and find purpose. As Frankl writes, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So, I ask you, what meaning are you creating today? What purpose calls to you? How might even your struggles be transformed into something valuable? Remember Frankl's fundamental insight. He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how. Your why is waiting to be discovered, not as some abstract philosophical question, but as the concrete reality of a life fully engaged with its unique purpose. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.